I think that'll be like a pervasive theme through our recording session.
Hello, Internet. My name is Nicole, and this is my husband, Ivan, and today we will be talking about books. And that is our cat, T-Cell, meowing in the background of Ivan's feed. He doesn't want to say hi. Okay, so this is our first book club in this format. So for those of you who didn't see my little announcement video about this, Ivan got a job in San Francisco and he moved there. I am still living in Los Angeles, finishing up my PhD. So we're going to be doing this every 2 weeks for the next couple of months, where I pick a book and then Ivan picks a book and then we, discuss them in videos like this. So the book for this week, or this bi-weekly book club, is Ninefox Gambit by Yoon Ha Lee, and that was my choice. Before we get into the book, I think we're going to chat a little bit about some of the other books we read. So we're going to do some non-spoilery stuff first and chat a little bit about the other books that we read in the last 2 weeks first, and then do a little non-spoilery bit about Ninefox Gambit, and then we'll do some more in-depth discussion that will have spoilers. So that's the plan. So what have you read recently, Ivan? Is there anything you want to try and convince me that I should read?
The things that I've read most recently are both things in the series. I read Stiletto, which I believe you've also read. You actually read that before me. I like that a lot.
So Stiletto is the second book in the Rook series by Daniel O'Malley, and the first book came out like 5 years ago. And Ivan talked me into reading that one.
Yeah, it was one of the piles and piles of books that I usually get before I go on vacation. If I go on vacation somewhere, I just get like 2 for every day that I plan to spend there, or ish. Like 1 or 2 for every day I plan to spend there. And then, so I was going into it completely blind, and I enjoyed it a lot. And then I talked Nicole into reading it. And Stiletto just came out recently, and it's the sequel, and it's also very good. It was actually so good that I went back and reread the first one because it was a while ago, and I didn't remember it too well. And then I read The Nightmare Stacks, which is a Laundry Files series novel by Charles Stross. He's a British, I think, semi-well-known urban science fiction-esque series. Like, sort of a British Delta Green world kind of setup, I would say. Yeah.
So maybe British X-Files is the more...
Yeah.
Delta Green is a role-playing game that uses Call of Cthulhu mechanics. It's a tabletop role-playing like dice and stuff that uses Call of Cthulhu mechanics, and it's kind of like the X-Files. And Ivan and I were in a group that did a Delta Green session for a while. Anyway, sidetracked. So is that pretty? So I read. What have I read? So I finished up. I don't know if this was in the last 2 weeks or a little while ago. Now, I finished up the Live Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb, which is it's not a direct sequel, but it's like in the same world as her Farseer trilogy, which I know Ivan is partway through. I liked it. It's a good series. It focuses on like some very different aspects of fantasy than kind of the stereotypical stuff. So what live ships are is they're ships that are magically imbued to have kind of like their own personalities and stuff. And they're inherited in families, so they're passed down through families. So all of our main characters are in this one family with a live ship, or basically all of our point of view characters are in this one family with a live ship. And there are a lot of global tensions going on, and it's kind of about how they deal with it, but it's also about like economics and trade. And I found that to be a really interesting aspect, and it's not something that's focused on as much in fantasy books. And then, what else did I finish? And then, okay, so today, as I was walking to lab, I finished Infomocracy by Malka Older. And I actually think you would really like this book. So it's kind of a near future techno thriller about elections. And so in the near future, the world has switched over to kind of like a universal democracy system, or most of the world has. There are still some countries that are like holdouts and don't do it. And so like once every 10 years, there's this huge election that's held, and people are divided up into sentinels, which is like every 100,000 people. Every 100,000 people vote on what they want their local government to be, and then a representative from like their local government goes to like a global parliament, and whoever has the majority of the sentinels is kind of like ruling the world, sort of. But so it's a lot about like election managing and like election engineering and things like that, and information and how information gets distorted and things like that. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It looks pretty interesting.
Okay. Yes, I just finished that as I was walking up. I'm pretty sure it's the first book in a series, and it did have a little bit of like first book in a series feels. Like there's one point of view character in particular who doesn't have much plot relevance in this book, but I feel like if there's a sequel, he'll be important. But like he didn't forward the plot much in this book. But yeah, that was good. And I think that's pretty much all that I finished. I finished a manga, but I don't think you would be interested in it, so we just won't talk about it.
One of the things I've been contemplating and reading is The Crown Tower by Michael J. Sullivan.
Okay.
Either that or The Theft of Swords by the same author. It's part of a series. I'm not sure which.
So I've read Theft of Swords, and I'm pretty sure you're supposed to start there. I don't know. There might be other people who can tell you better, but I'm pretty sure all of his books are set in the same world. So even though that's like a second trilogy, I'm pretty sure he's one of those authors where you want to read them in publication order.
I see, because the Crown Tower trilogy is like a prequel trilogy that was published after the first trilogy. So I don't know.
Yeah, so in the second book of the Theft of Swords series, which I can't think of the name of right now.
Revelations.
Yeah, Revelations. You find out some stuff about the main characters that's like important, like things from their past are important plot points.
I see.
So I'm pretty sure if you read the prequel first, I haven't read the prequel, but I'm pretty sure if you read it first, that will not be as impactful or work out quite as well.
Okay. Did you like the series? Would you recommend it?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'll give it a try then. Did we crash?
Am I still here?
Kind of.
Okay, did I like beep in and out for a second?
You froze for a minute, but you're back.
Okay, cool. I will continue to say what I was saying then. Yeah, so I think I liked Theft of Swords. I think it has kind of an old school fantasy feel, but I think the author does a really good job of adapting that to be like unique enough and original enough that it's still interesting, and he does some really good character development. Like I definitely feel like he builds on fantasy tropes, and he doesn't just kind of like rest on them and like stop there. He definitely like builds on it and makes it kind of his own thing, which is good.
And the other thing I'm looking forward to reading is The Guns of Empire by Django Wexler.
Okay.
Yep.
I still haven't read the first book in that series. And it moved to the new place with Ivan, so I'm not going to be reading it anytime soon.
Do we have hard copies of anything other than the first book?
No, we just have the first book in hard copy.
Where do we get the hard copy of the first book? Was it?
I got it at the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books, and it might have been one of the free ones I got when I bought. So the first time I went to the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books, the One Mysterious Galaxy bookstore was having like a promotion where if you bought books for the signings that were happening later, they gave you free books, and I think that's where I got it.
I see. We also got The Greats of Kings.
Oh yeah, the second book in that series? I forgot
Oh,
what
the
that.
first book in that series, the Wall of Storms, the second book in Ken Liu's series, is coming out in October.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have to get a copy of that, and then maybe we can try and get that one signed too. I'm actually, in terms of books that are coming out, I'm really looking forward to Obelisk Gate, which is coming out. Might actually have just come out, but it was about to come out, and that's the second book in the fifth season series, the Broken Earth series. Is that the name of the series?
But the series, yeah.
Yeah, the fifth season was the first book in that series, and I really like the first book in that series, and I'm really looking forward to the second book. Actually, the first book in that series was in our wedding cake. So I'm really looking forward to the second book.
Maybe I should read it. Is it like a fantasy? It looks like a fantasy kind of.
It is. It's kind of a fantasy. It's kind of a fantasy sci-fi crossover. So it's set in a world where the Earth is really tectonically active, and so there's this magic system where magicians are able to draw energy or put energy into the tectonic activity, and either like make things happen in their surrounding, or they can like make earthquakes and volcanoes and things happen by pouring energy into the Earth. And it's pretty cool. Yeah. So I'll probably I don't know when I feel like it like came out, like just came out. So I'll probably have read that by the next book club, and then I can let you know what I thought. Speaking of which, okay, so next time we're reading, so in 2 weeks from now, we're going to be talking about Ivan's pick, which is The Big Sheep.
Yep.
Do you want to say a little bit about that one?
It just looked interesting when I was kind of just browsing around what Amazon was going to suggest to me. And this looks like a sort of a cyberpunk-ish novel with a detective that's trying to hunt down a very important sheep. It's important because it has some genetic alterations that's important to the company, and then there's a person who goes missing, and it's supposed to be somewhat humorous, noir-esque. It just sounds kind of like an interesting sort of near future cyberpunk book, and has a lot of positive reviews. So it sounded interesting, and it sounded like it would be kind of fun.
So that's for next week, and then 2 weeks from now,
Is that from 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, sorry, that's 2 weeks from now, and then 4 weeks from now, so a month from now, it's going to be my choice again, and I'm giving Ivan some options on this. So the theme is that I need to read the books that I got from the library, that I have out from the library at UCLA. So UCLA lets me check out library books basically indefinitely as a student. So I have books that I need to get read. So you get to pick one of those. So first option is Hild, and this is like a historical fantasy set in the Dark Ages. I don't know how fantastical the fantasy elements are. I actually just started reading this one a little bit, so that's one possibility. Other possibility is, okay, I don't know if you've read this or not. This is The Ghost Brigades. This is the second book in the Old Man's War series. Did you end up continuing with the Old Man's War series? I know you've read Old Man's War.
I only read Old Man's War, and I didn't like it enough to continue it.
So probably not this one is what you're telling me?
Probably not. I don't know.
Okay. And then I have Out by Natsu Kikurino. So this is a Japanese thriller, and it's like set in the 90s, or it was originally published in the 90s. And it's like one of the books that started the like Japanese thriller craze, or maybe like started getting them translated into English. I don't exactly know. So that's what that one is. And then the last one that I have out right now is Parable of the Sower.
For Kindle. Okay.
Which one? Out?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't think there is a Kindle version, actually. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I think that's why I got it out from the library, is because I don't think there's a Kindle version. Okay, so the last one is Parable of the Sower. I know you haven't read anything by this author, but I really like this author. But I don't know if this is the best place to start. But this is like a dystopian novel.
Is it
And
like a continuation of a series, like when it was Child of Fire or something? I want to say it was one of her early books, or Angel of.
no,
What else has she written?
this isn't a continuation of anything, but
Because she wrote.
it's the first book in the series. She wrote trying to think of what you're trying to think of. So I
Like some
have
girl that gets abandoned and turns in the desert and like turns murderous or something like that. Is that her or is that someone else?
that's someone else.
That's someone else. Okay.
So anyway, so which book do you think we should read, or which one would you like to read?
Probably between. Probably between Hild and what was the Octavia Butler one again?
Parable of the Sower.
Parable of the Sower.
Between these two. I'm inclined to go with Hild if you don't have a strong opinion between the two, because I've already started it.
You already started it?
Yeah,
How
like
was
just
it?
a little bit. It seems good so far, but I've only read like 20 pages, so.
Yeah, let me see if I can get it for Kindle.
Okay. So we'll probably go with Hild then. And that'll be what?
Yeah, let's go with Hild.
Okay, so Hild will be our book for 4 weeks from now. So the second weekend in September. So yeah, and the plan is to do these probably Sunday afternoons in the future, but we're still working out our schedules a little bit because I've just moved and I'm about to move also and things. So yes, so with that, let's start talking about Ninefox Gambit, which we'll spend most of the rest of the time. Do you want to try and give a summary of this one?
Yeah, sure. So basically, it's a science fiction or like light science fiction / science fantasy kind of book. I would say almost military sci-fi in its execution. It basically follows a character who is a captain in a military expedition that ends up showing some unusual and perhaps undesired talents. And her command shunts her off to this dangerous mission to retake a space station from a bunch of rebels and puts in a like former possibly insane rebel general into her head as a resource. And it's about how she goes about her mission and how she tries to capture the fortress. And it's also about sort of the world building of this system, this form of government that her people kind of have, and, you know, its implications and rebellion and stuff like that. So that's kind of a broad overall summary.
Yeah, so I think, so without going into spoilers, I think one of the most interesting things going on in this book is the government / magic system. So
yeah,
it's hard. So there's this calendrical system in the story, and it's not really clear. It's basically like it's so far future that it's not really clear if this is a technology or if this is like actual magic. But at some point, people discover this thing, and what the calendrical magic system does is that as long as you follow the calendar, it grants you abilities or the ability to do certain things. But if you encounter another group of people who are following a different calendar, it kind of like cancels out your abilities. So in the kind of empire that our main character is part of, it's called the Heptarch or
Hexarchy.
Hexarchy. Yeah.
Now it's the
Hexarchy.
Hexarchy.
Yes.
It was the
Now
Hexarchy.
now it's the Hexarchy. It used to be a Heptarchy, but so it's the Hexarchy, and so they're following the calendar of the Hexarchy. And so right away, and that following that calendar gives them like everybody following that calendar and believing in it gives them certain abilities and the ability to do certain crazy things, like travel faster than light, but there's also like more battle-oriented abilities. And so like in the beginning of the story, we're following, like the first chapter, we're following our main character as she's on this battlefield, and so she's a soldier. So the Hexarchy has 6 different factions within it, and one of them is the soldier class, and that's what our main character is. And so she's fighting against another group who follow a different calendar, and so they refer to them as being heretics.
Heretics.
Yeah, calendrical heretics. And so they're following a different calendar, and so like nobody's magical abilities, like everybody's magical abilities work, but they don't work quite right when you're trying to fight someone with a different calendar. So it's a really interesting system. Like it takes a little while to get your mind around, but it's really cool and interesting. And that was probably one of my favorite parts of the book, was the world building and all of that going into that.
I thought the world building was really strong. I mean, I thought the system it's kind of cool. I think it's the details of it are very vaguely explained on purpose, but I like the way it works and how it sort of sets up the conflicts between the people who follow one form of calendar and time regimentation and the others, and why and how those interact. So it basically, in the first chapter, and this happens pretty early on, it describes the battle between the main character's forces and the heretics. And what happens is the main character has to basically sort of almost commit heresy herself, like adjust the formations and the technology that her unit uses, so mathematically, to be able to effectively counter the heretics' weapons so they don't all get slaughtered, like, you know, all of the other companies that are fighting alongside her. So I think it does a good job of describing the conflict and the warfare and sort of the implications of the clash of the various belief systems. So I like that a lot about it too.
And okay, so I've read, the reason why I picked this book, I've read, this is the first, I believe this is the first novel by this author, and it's also, I'm pretty sure it's the first one in the series, just if you're considering.
The first one in the series,
yeah. Okay, yes, it's the first book in the series. So yeah, there is a fair amount of setup for like future books, but where I was going with this, so I've read, so the author's short story collection, Conservation of Shadows, definitely has some stories which are set in this same universe, although they're not like centered around the same point of conflict. But like, I feel like reading his short stories gave me an even greater appreciation, because he goes into a lot more detail for some of the other like space combat and stuff in some of his other short stories that are set in this world. And I'm pretty sure one of the short stories is set in the, I'm not entirely certain, but I think one of the short stories is set in the main character's hometown, the like city of Ravens that she's from, which sounds like it seemed like a pretty cool place. But yeah, I don't know, I think it's good. Oh, what did you think of the characters in this one?
I liked the main character. I thought she was pretty well fleshed out. Although it never really is particularly clear why she went into the military. I mean, they kind of hand wave it away at some point, but she's kind of the central focus with a lot of she and the other character, or sort of the guy that they stick in her head, are kind of the central focus of it. And I like those two characters a lot. I like both her, and I liked the sort of the Trader General, or Jadao. He was really interesting too. I think they're both fairly well developed. They don't go too into depth into Sheris's kind of backstory. They go way more into depth of Jadao, and he's probably the more interesting character overall, because he has that sort of mystery behind it, like what is his deal? Why did he turn traitor? What's he trying to do? The supporting characters were okay. There weren't like any real consistent supporting characters throughout the book. They kind of appear and disappear. There be people that are part of her company, and then later the people that are part of her fleet. And there's sort of an antagonist, vaguely, but he appears kind of early on in the book, but pretty much disappears throughout most of the rest of it. Just sort of a kind of distant threat or influence. And as far as the more immediate antagonists, the rebels on the fortress, I liked that they actually, the author interspersed between things going from like following Sheris's point of view, the point of view of certain other characters, like minor ones, like the soldiers trying to take the fortress and the spies, and especially one of the central kind of rebels, the person you get the reports from time to time.
Yeah.
I liked her character. She was interesting as well.
Yes, at the beginning of a lot of chapters, or maybe they're their own little chapters, I forget now, you get these little snippets from one of the rebels, and she gets like increasingly snarky as the book goes on. At first she's like all formal, and then as it goes on she's like, screw you guys. She just gets really snarky. It's very entertaining to me. Yeah, I think the second half of the book in particular really focuses a lot on General Jidao's character. And I feel like a lot of what's going on with Cheris will be resolved in future novels. And like, because yeah, a lot of her
question mark.
Yeah, a lot of her decision making isn't. I mean, it seems like I believe she has rational internal decision making, and that like the author has thought about it. I just don't know what it is at this point because her character hasn't quite been developed enough for me to really know that. But I mean, her like actions do seem like self-consistent, and like she has some sort of a plan. I don't know, some sort of an agenda. I just don't know what it is. But yeah.
Well, she didn't really start out with one. Well, yeah.
Maybe she does.
Going to major spoilers in the territory. She didn't really start out with an agenda. Like, she started out with just being like, I'm going to be a good soldier. And things kind of change throughout the book as she realizes that there may be more going on, and as Jidao begins to kind of play mind games with her and sort of influence her actions.
Yes.
I like their interactions. I like the kind of dynamic between sort of Sheris and Jidao, because basically, so in this world's backstory in the universe building, Jidao was a general from like 400 something years before Sheris was born, and he was lent by the spy faction to the military faction for one reason or another, some sort of power play that wasn't exactly explained, and he was a really great general, so they kept sending him on a bunch of suicide assignments until he went crazy, killed everyone on the planet basically, and shot his entire command staff. After which they sort of captured him and
put him in deep freeze.
Well, not really, because what they basically did was they killed him and they uploaded him like as sort of an informational entity without any kind of body or anything like that, as a tool that they bring out from time to time. And to use him, they basically have to literally stick him into someone's head. Or, well, not literally stick him into someone's head. I don't really know how they do it. But to basically, they have to fuse him with someone else's thoughts so that he can like talk to the person that he's fused with, or his anchor, as they use the terminology, and to be able to advise them on how to do the general thing and win battles and such. So, but he's possibly crazy, kind of crazy. He has his own agenda, and that plays into a lot of the book as he's trying to sort of pursue his own agenda while being stuck inside of Sheris, who's just trying to serve her people, and he's playing his own game, and the powers that be who put him into Sheriff know that he's probably playing his own game, so they put up their own.
There are many different sides to this fight.
Yeah.
It is much more complicated than it seems, than
Yep.
like the first, rebel faction, main government trying to take each other over, and then there's like several other layers of complication within that.
It's actually a somewhat deeper conflict. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So do you want to let's move forward and start talking spoilery stuff? So if people haven't read the book, it might be a good time to leave. Although you also might just not understand what we're talking about, because as we probably implied from everything that's going on in the book so far, it is like pretty complex and dense. It's a relatively short book, but it's like pretty complex and dense. It's not like the fastest read in the world. There's a lot of stuff going on.
I think it's a reasonably fast read. I think I went through it in about 3 evenings.
Yeah, I mean it's not super long, but it takes some concentration. So speaking of which, Ivan knows this, but I'll just let everybody else know. So on Monday, so not quite a week from when we're doing this, I was flying on Delta when their computer systems went down. So I read most of this book while I was stuck in the airport. So I read the first half on my Kindle, and I'm pretty sure I retained that pretty well. And then the second half I listened to on audiobook while I was just wandering around in the Detroit airport, because I was stuck there for like 3 hours. And I'm pretty sure Ivan's gonna mention some things, and I'm gonna be like, I do not remember that happening at all.
That's like the best. The second part's when things really like come to a head.
Yeah, but that's why I feel like I probably didn't retain it quite as well. Like I definitely remember what happens at the end, but there's some bits in there where I'm like, I probably forgot some stuff or didn't hold on to that information. So I was starting to.
The most important stuff to retain is probably the world building and how the society works, because if you don't understand that, then you're just going to be lost.
Yeah, no,
really lost.
Yeah, and I think the author does a really good job of establishing that and like putting it together. Like it's a very complex world, so I feel like he does a very good job of establishing that in the first few chapters of the book and like giving you enough information of what's going on that it can carry you through the rest of the book.
Yeah.
I think he does a very good job of establishing the hexarchy and making it make sense, sort of, as much sense as it's gonna make.
He really does, and he kind of. So if you start this book and you feel a little lost at first, that's okay, because he kind of starts things like in medias res. So he basically starts with a battle, more or less, and at first you're like, I don't know what's going on or why this is that, and over the course he keeps building it. He never really does like the exposition dump where he plops down and says this is this, but basically the first several chapters are just dedicated to establishing the hierarchy. The more you read, the more you understand. So if you start out confused, that's okay. I started out confused too, but it came together really quickly.
All right, so I don't know. What was your favorite part? Because I know you like the second half better, so as long as we're gonna be.
I mean, my favorite part was I pretty much liked everything where Jadao was being a major player. I liked Jadao, I did, but probably my favorite part was the ending itself, or near the end, where Sheriff eats him.
Yes. Also, I really like the kitty in the background. Kitty has decided to come visit. Yes, that was interesting. I think it'll be. I think the second book will be intriguing for that reason, because towards the end of the book, Cheris and Jadao kind of like merge into one person.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. Like who is? It's not. It's a new character basically by the end. So what happens is there's a battle for the fortress, and Sheris and Jadao win, so they manage to take the fortress back from the rebels. And after that, the main government sends in a few more troops to basically kill everybody in Cheris's army, including her and Jadao. So they basically want to get rid of him at this point. So she gets betrayed by her own people, and they hit her with a weapon that reduces everybody to just like a pile of memories. But because of the unique relationship with Jadao being inside of Cheris's head, he also serves as a shield, so he takes the hit for her. So everybody else is dead. Jadao is dead. She's alive, but early on, and I think like Jadao does this to purposefully to sort of plant the idea in her head. He mentions that, or I don't even know if he mentions it or actually like a report mentions it, that the memories that come, like the memories that result from people that have been affected by this gun can be consumed or ingested by others, and then they sort of take up an aspect of their character and their knowledge and their memories. So what Cheris does in the end is she takes the sort of the essence of Jadao and she puts it in herself. So she becomes sort of an amalgamate of two people, of herself and of Jadao. So she's now this like new Cheris Jadao person.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know what she actually, I don't remember what she actually thinks of herself as being at the end.
Well, we don't really get that. Like, the book ends within a few hours of that happening, so we don't really know. Like, that's definitely something to be resolved in a sequel. Like, what exactly, like, who is this person? Are they, more Cheris or more Jadao, or just kind of both? Or, like, what's going on? Because, yeah. And what you were talking about, it definitely mentions it in a report. Like, I don't think he mentions that to her. Like, Jadao definitely...
He doesn't. It was in a report. So yeah, he never... Yeah.
There's a report that like says there are like 2 weapons that can kill him, and that the one that turns everybody into memories is one of them that they believe will kill him. And then it mentions that like if we do turn him into memories, then someone could probably eat the memories and like retain all his knowledge, and that might also be useful. So maybe we should go with that one.
Yeah. Well, it was more like, if he's withholding information or decides to rebel again, we need to do this and put his memories into a volunteer so that he can be tortured. I think is how the report actually phrases it. Because they're not nice. The government here is not very nice.
No.
Like, they're not very good people. And in fact, the whole basis, so one of the sort of important world building aspects of the world was there was a heptarchate, which is 7. So there are 7 factions of people. And they have like a kind of a case-based society. So they have the Kel, who are the soldiers, and they have the Shuos, who are the spies, and the Nirai, who are the scientists, and some judges and like inquisitors and diplomats and stuff like that. So there are 7 factions, and at one point one of the factions was like, hey, why don't we try out a democracy? And everybody else was like, die. So there are only 6 factions. And this rebellion is dangerous because it was basically a sort of a minor resurgence of the 7th faction.
Amanda says hi in the chat. Hi, Amanda.
Oh, is there a chat?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. The chat is on YouTube.
Oh, I see.
Next time I'll send you the link to that in advance.
Katie?
Yes.
He's on the counter. Okay. So that's sort of an important point on the sort of internal power struggles of this little empire, but basically they very strictly enforce their belief system, and bad things happen to people who rebel or do not follow. And they have like ritual torture the heretic days and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important for them that the calendar keeps working, because if it stops working, then they like lose the ability to travel faster than light and stuff. Like they like actively, like people
all
rebelling.
All their technology breaks down.
Yeah, is actively bad for them. So, So their desire to strictly enforce it is sort of understandable, but also like they're not very nice.
The issue with this fortress is that it's key to like a control of like a sector of the galaxy, and the very fact that there was a rebellion was basically disrupting their technologies in like a spread around this sort of area, like massive area of star systems and stuff like that. So it was kind of important for them that the rebellion gets put down. So, but now there may potentially be a new rebellion. So it's kind of what we, yeah. I mean, I never believed that Jadao was crazy. Did you?
Yes.
You did?
I mean, he killed everybody. I think he has to be at least a little bit crazy.
I mean, I don't
like,
think.
Even if he has a goal, so he does have a goal, and I believe he has a goal, but even then, like, he has to be a little bit crazy to do the things he's done. Like, he can't be an entirely sane human. He can have a goal and be trying to pursue his goal and still be crazy. And I think he is clearly a bit of like a megalomaniac or something. Like he's clearly not entirely a stable human being.
Well, yeah, that's true, but nah. Well, within like this universe's sort of internal psychology, I didn't really ever believe that he was crazy, or like I never believed that he like just snapped and killed everyone for no reason. Like I always believed that he had some sort of reason and some sort of plan. So it didn't really come as a surprise to me that he's basically why exactly he did what he did is still unclear, and what exactly he was trying to accomplish was also not completely clear, but he was trying to commit an atrocity at a high enough level that instead of just executing him, they would like basically do what they did to him, which is download his brain and use him as a tool. And it's not entirely clear why.
I think he's basically trying to live forever so that he can continue his goals.
Yep.
Like, because there's one of the leaders in the Hexarchy who has a method of basically making himself immortal. And so he's basically, what's happened to Jijao is actually a different type of immortality. So, but he didn't believe, the guy in the Hexarchy who's made himself immortal, like, hasn't shared that with anyone. So he didn't think he could get that. So he did
Is
this
it a
to
different
try.
type of immortality? Because I thought it's the same type.
No, it's a different type.
Are you sure? Because
Yeah.
it's just referred to as the Black Cradle, and apparently there are only 3 people who ever tried to do
No,
it.
there's only 2 people that have been in the. Well, there's.
Well, one of them like
Yeah.
died. One of them just went completely insane and died, or was like deleted or whatever. And the guy that did it successfully, Nirai, Nirai Kujin, right? What was his name?
Yeah. Who takes care of, or who's the like caretaker?
He did it, and he basically, and we see that what he does is he uploads his mind into different bodies, and like that's how he works. So, and then Jadao was the third one, and no one else used the system. I was under the impression that they used the same method because it's only one method.
I don't think it's exactly the same because the Hexarch guy seems to retain like complete control of his new body, whereas Zhao does not.
Well, I mean that may be like
Teres retains control of her body.
Yes, that's true.
And speaks for Jadao, whereas the Hexarch guy seems to completely take over the new body and like become the dominant personality and everything in the new body. So
and it's apparently the same body all the time. So I don't know maybe Jadao has other sort of limitations placed on him, so he's not allowed to fully control a body, or maybe Kujin figured out like a way to basically clone himself with a blank mind, so that when he goes in, he controls the body. Because he says he has like bodies prepared ahead of time, like multiple bodies prepared ahead of time for him to sort of go into. So I don't know.
I don't know either. Hopefully, I think this will come up in another book.
Yeah. So basically, the deal with Jadao is that he wants to bring like the whole form of government down. So And he even laments at one point that he like threw his little rebellion before the seventh faction rebelled, otherwise that he would probably join them. But yeah, he basically conspired with the other guy who had immortality to he and the other immortal guy, who is actually a leader of one of the factions, although in secret, are maybe potentially conspiring together to bring down the government completely and rework the system into something else. Although it's unclear if that's actually what the other immortal guy wants, or whether he was just trying to trick Jadao.
I don't think we know what the other immortal guy
We don't really
wants.
know, because so basically before Jadao, massacred everyone, they kind of put together a plan. They're like, okay, so they talked with each other and they're like, the system sucks. So as long as the second guy was like, let's make a new one. As long as it allows the technology that keeps me immortal to work, I'll be okay with it. And you can do whatever sort of social stuff you want. If you don't like the whole killing, murdering empire thing, maybe try something else. So they're like, okay. So then Jadao does the thing that he does, and then he gets put into the cradle and sort of downloaded as memories, and 400 years basically brought out to fight in various wars as sort of someone riding along with another person. And you get the sense that whoever he rides along with, after the mission is done and he gets put away, that person probably gets executed.
Yeah.
And probably their entire army as well. Like, they're like, this is the kind of empire that they're like, yeah, secret mission, no one needs to know about this ever, just kill everyone involved.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Later. Cherry's like throughout the book is like, when I'm done with this, or when this is over and you're gone and Jadao is gone, I'm gonna do this, or like she has thoughts of the future, and the whole time I'm like,
no,
I don't think that's gonna work out for you.
I mean, to be fair, sometimes they don't kill them; they just mind wipe them, which is another thing they can do. So after the first battle, where she uses a bunch of heretical math, they split her off from her unit, and you get the sense that pretty much her entire unit either gets broken up and probably gets mind wiped, so that they can't remember, at the very least, what happened during that battle. So yeah, so you know that they're never really going to let Cheris walk away. So from the very first, I was kind of expecting her to, try to escape or run away with Jadao.
And so Joe mentioned in the chat that the second book is called, they released the title, it's Raven Stratagem, and I just looked it up. It's coming out, set to come out June 13th of next year. So
cool. Yay.
Yep. I will probably read it when it comes out. I assume you will too. We both like this one.
Yeah.
I thought it was really unique and interesting, and I think I really want to see where the relationship, where the Cheris Jadao hybrid human goes. Yeah. I don't know if it's fair to call that a relationship between them anymore.
Yeah, they're not a different person anymore. Like, at first they were different people, and they were like arguing with each other, and Jadao was sort of kind of trying to mess with her head at various points, / sort of really quickly and desperately educate her about the world as it is, and the things that she would need to both fight this battle and potentially battles in the future against her own people. But now it's definitely, in the end, you get the sense that it's a unique character. I just read the last couple of pages, and you get the feeling that it's Cheris and also Jadao kind of at the same time. Like, they're both there. Yeah. So it's weird.
So it'll be interesting to see how that person turns out. How that person-ish turns out.
Yeah.
Yes, and like what they go and do now, because we know what Jadao's end game is, or we have an idea of what Jadao's end game is, but it's not really clear how Cheris is going to influence that. And like, because her backstory isn't as clear, so it's not really clear where that all is going to go. But it should be. I think it'll be cool.
Yep. I'm excited. Like this is one of the better examples of military sci-fi that I've read. And it's not like pure military sci-fi either, which is sort of makes it good.
Yeah, so. I think not being pure military sci-fi tends to get a little like I'm not as interested. I'm not interested in the minutia of the military, I guess would be the thing. Like the idea of there being future weapons and everything is cool, but I'm not really into like going into gross detail of how the future military is organized and like what exactly what weapons they use and exactly what rank system they use and stuff like that. I'm like, So I think this was enough military that there was battles and action and like a clear military influence without being like too detailed for me.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
All right. So any other thoughts, or you want to we can wrap it up here?
Anything from the chat? Anyone who's read the book want to contribute?
I don't have anything. Joe also mentioned that the sequel for Infomocracy, which I was talking about earlier, is coming out next year as well, or is scheduled to come out next year as well. So that is the sequel. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Yes. I don't have any other thoughts right now, I don't think, or anything. Okay. I'm dying to share. Okay. So yeah, so we'll end things there, and then in 2 weeks, so on the 28th, on the 28th of August, we will be back to talk about the big sheep.
The big sheep. Meh.
Fuzzy sheep. So that's all for today, and we will see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.